Hey Greg, Tom Larimer, Larimer Outfitters here. Hey, thanks so much for coming out on the water with me and doing some casting and a little bit of fishing. It was a really fun day. Great to see you again. This lesson we're going to be working on your double spey from the right side of the river, and I want to focus on a few of the things that we worked on while we were on the water and kind of give you a nice reference to come back to when you're out there casting on your own. So the very first thing that we really talked about was your anchor. And, one of the big issues you had with your anchor, we'll watch this cast go out. One of the big issues you had with your anchor, I'm going to back up here. You make a nice lift, you start to sweep the rod upstream, and you were having a tendency to kind of wrap that rod way around your body, and that was kind of pulling the line in really close to your body, and you were having some issues feeling the rod load. So the solution here was stopping with your rod tip now straight upstream, and that really kind of helped keep that line out away from your body. And if you remember right, what we talked about was where that fly line should land, about a foot inside of your rod tip out on the water. So if you were to stick your rod tip straight out, when that thing lands on the water, we're trying to get that little loop of line that we talked about and then all the way down to your fly. So this distance right here should be about a foot, and before it was like curling way in on your body, so did a much better job with that. Going into your Dloop, we'll take a look as you sweep around. The analogy that we used was thinking about you're a Martini glass, you're the stem, you're going to lift to the Martini glass and then sweep around on the Martini glass with your rod tip. So I'll start playing this and we'll just watch your rod come around. It's flat, 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 and then right there, you see how your rod starts to lift up? I'm going to back that up. Watch very carefully as you sweep. Here you're on the plane. You're right on the Martini glass. Let me back up a little bit. Now, let's watch your rod tip break up right there. And so, just think about as you sweep around into the Dloop here, keeping that rod flatter just a little bit longer. That'll throw your Dloop a little lower, and you'll end up with a little bit more stick or a little better anchor, and you won't be blowing the anchor out. If the rod tip breaks up, so is the Dloop. So let me get rid of that line. You'll see as the more the rod breaks up, the more the Dloop wants to lift off the water, and you have less contact right here. So just keep that rod a little flatter a little bit longer. And then one of the really big issues that we talked about was right here in your cast, the idea of trunking. So I'm going to back up. Just watch your rod tip as it sweeps around right here. You see how your rod tip actually dropped in altitude. I'll back up. This is caused from your bottom hand actually pushing up. And it's subtle in your cast, but it was really screwing up your timing. Right there, you can see the rod tip drop back. And then more to the point too, Greg, is looking where your firing position is. So your rod is so flat right here that when you come forward into your forward cast, inevitably you're going to throw a convex rod tip shape and thus creating a big wide open loop as this thing goes out. So remember, one of the basics of casting, we need to throw a straight rod tip plane with a smooth acceleration and a late power application. So if we can get you just stopping that rod a little higher and just think about locking into that position. On the clock face, maybe 10:30 or so is about where you want to stop. And then when you come forward, now you're creating a nice straight rod tip path from point A to point B. And that's just going to equate to tighter loops out over the water. Okay? So really watch that rod tip dropping back, and you really got that in the lesson. Sweeping around on that flat plane, lock into your firing position, and then go. And if you have any questions of where that firing position is, just do some roll casts, and you'll kind of find where the sweet spot is. If you drop it too far back, it doesn't work too well. You get too much line stick on the water. Too vertical, and you don't get enough D-loop. So you can kind of find your magic casting position by just doing roll casting drills. And then the final thing that we worked on was really just watching your shoulders from turning and keeping your core pointing at your target. So those are the big things we worked on, Greg. I sure appreciate the day. It was really fun seeing you. Thanks again for coming out.